how do you separate, how did you find the right data points you could get, I guess, to actually tell if an application's performing, and when there's so many applications out there, and it's not a small challenge to take on.
Well, and that's, I would say, and that's where we are on the journey now, right? After joining Juniper, we started the journey with the access point, which really helped us answer questions about, connectivity. At Juniper now, we're starting to basically ingest data from the router, the SD-WAN piece of it, right? And that really starts to let us answer questions about the application, right? Because the router is what has all that session level layer 3 through 7 information. And so that really starts to let us start answering the question of, why is a user having a Zoom problem, right? And so the router starts to bring in more information. And then overall, you kind of see with this AI journey where we're headed to as we start to ingest data from the client, the AP, the switch, the router. It lets us answer more questions, like why is the app having a problem? And it really lets us answer more questions with granularity. Now I can go, if I have the router information, I can tell you if you're having a WAN problem, right? Because now I have visibility into the WAN interface. I can tell you, have you just lost your fiber connection and moved over to your cellular backup? So that's the power of AI right now, and basically you start ingesting data from multiple sources to getting to root cause of more granularity.
Sure. And I know that as part of your initiative, I know Juniper just did an acquisition of 128 Technologies, and how does that play into the picture, and especially with the pandemic, possibly in more of these micro offices or whatever we want to call them, where people, more and more small offices where it's hard to get a handle on, I guess, the performance characteristics or, the quality of what you're connecting to, I guess, on that NP, that last mile, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that's where everyone's kind of looking at the home as a new micro branch, right? The question is, how are we going to support people working from the home? Are we going to start to put SD-WAN technology in your house? Some sort of form of a backup, right? When you're home, you got your broadband connection, and, should you have a cellular backup ready to go, from your house, like this podcast, right?
Right.
What happens if my internet goes down? I want to make sure that it has some reliability to go back up on the other thing. So yeah, the 128 acquisition was really around next generation SD-WAN router, and as I said, it's really about getting information from that router, especially the 128 session routing. It had kind of a unique characteristic where it gives us more granularity on the individual user. Each session is being tracked as opposed to a tunnel, right? Whereas, you lose some visibility, you track a big tunnel that has a lot of sessions in, as opposed to now we have granularity all down to each session that is going through that router.
So to the untrained and person here, I'm just putting things together in my head and seeing all these years of evolution. It almost sounds like some of the same issues that like the next generation firewalls are dealing with, right? Not just the location, but now actually even the performance information inside of there. So is that kind of is those things melding together at some point, I guess? And how does that?
Yeah, that's another, and I would say working from home, that's the SASE trend, right? As we see people and workloads get distributed, I would say my analogy is in the old days, right? We used to put bumps in the wire, right?
Right.
A firewall was basically, we'll put a bump, we'll put a box somewhere and it'll do some function. Nowadays in the future, I think we're building bumps in the cloud, right?
Right.
If you look like Zscaler, right? Zscaler is a bump in the cloud. We're going to take all your data, we're going to send it to somewhere in the cloud to do some security function on it.
Right.
So I think that is the trend we're seeing on the cloudification of things, right? We're going to see more bumps in the cloud. The information we get, the AI ops piece is kind of sitting on top of this, right? Question, as this stuff gets more complex, and that's a challenge IT is facing, right? These networks are getting more complex. It used to be in a simple day, you had a little network, with a firewall, and everything was under your control.
Right. VPN concentrator to get into it, remote SSL, then you really got high tech back then.
Yeah. I mean, those days, I feel kind of sorry for the IT, the IT admin of the world today, right? I mean, the old days, it was like you were a CCI, you learned your CLI commands and you were good to go. Now we're asking them to be a Python programmer, and we're starting to ask them to even become a little bit of a data science, to actually start to manage all these networks.